transition to Indianapolis and talk about the Indianapolis Colts firing former head coach Frank Reich. Frank Reich, he went 40, 33 and 1 since the 2018 season. He had playoff appearances in 2018 and 2020. He had one playoff win. He had 7 different starting quarterbacks. He was 1-2 in the playoffs. So, my immediate reaction to the Colts firing Frank Reich was Frank Reich, he didn't get it done. We got to call it what it is because Jim Irsay, he's the owner for the Indianapolis Colts. He didn't fire general manager Chris Ballard. He kept him on board as the GM in Indianapolis. He fired Frank Reich because Frank Reich made a promise to that Colts organization that he could revitalize these veteran quarterbacks' careers who have recently came to Indianapolis to play quarterback. It started with Phillip Rivers in 2020. Phillip Rivers, he led the Colts to the playoffs that year, but they lost on wild card weekend. I believe it was to the Buffalo Bills. Rivers retires, and then they transition to Carson Wentz. Now, I said the Colts trading for Carson Wentz was a bad move. I don't believe in Carson Wentz as a quarterback you can build your franchise around. The only great season that Carson Wentz ever had was that 2017 season where he was an MVP candidate and almost led the Eagles to the number 1 seed in the NFC. But he got injured, and Nick Foles went on to win the Super Bowl in Philadelphia. And honestly, Carson Wentz, he wasn't the same ever since Nick Foles won a Super Bowl in Philadelphia. Carson Wentz's career hasn't been the same. So I didn't like the move of going to get Carson Wentz. Frank Reich, he had history with Carson Wentz in Philadelphia. So they had a relationship before they traded for Carson Wentz. I understand that part. I don't understand the production from Carson Wentz if you're trying to trade for him. I don't think that he had the production of a quarterback that you want to make a trade for when you're trying to win a Super Bowl. But I understand the relationship that Carson Wentz had with Frank Reich. But that didn't work out. That was last year. And then this season, they bring in Matt Ryan. And Matt Ryan was terrible as quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts during his short tenure in Indianapolis. You look at his numbers, Matt Ryan, this year he had 9 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 2,008 passing yards. He completed 68% of his passes, but he had 9 interceptions. And I was watching games where Matt Ryan was underthrowing receivers. He can't move anymore in the pocket. It's time for Matt Ryan to retire and hang him up. I love Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan won an NFL MVP. He has a Super Bowl appearance on his resume. I believe Matt Ryan is a good quarterback. I don't believe he's great. I believe he's good. But it's time for Matt Ryan to retire. But Frank Reich couldn't make it work with Matt Ryan. So I know Frank Reich knows his football. He's forgotten more football than I know, but he hasn't gotten the job done in Indianapolis since he's been the head coach. And he's had 7 quarterbacks that he's worked with. But this is not just a Frank Reich problem. This is a problem with the Indianapolis Colts organization, starting with the owner and Jim Irsay. General manager Chris Ballard as well. He deserves some of this blame as well. Stop going and getting these old, washed up veteran quarterbacks. It started with Phillip Rivers. in 2020. Then you went to Carson Wentz, who is also washed up. Now this year, you trade for Matt Ryan. He was awful. That didn't work. Go and get a quarterback in the draft and develop that quarterback to be your franchise quarterback moving forward. Quit being lazy and trying to get rich quick and be this contender that is a Super Bowl contender because you inserted a veteran quarterback. The Indianapolis Colts, you know who they remind me of? They remind me of that individual, male or female, who is in relationship after relationship after relationship. And at some point, if you're a friend, if you're a family member, you're like, hey, chill out for a minute. Work on you. Work on yourself. Start over. That's the Indianapolis Colts. They need to start from scratch and try and draft a quarterback in the upcoming NFL draft this year. They're going to be available. C.J. Stroud will be available. Bryce Young will be available. They're already terrible this year. You look at the Colts' record for the season, they're 3-5-1. So they're not a playoff team. You look at it's other teams in the AFC that I'm taking over the Colts to be a playoff team. They're not a contender at all. They got this kid now starting, Sam Ehlinger. He's not very good. He looks lost on the field. He went 15 of 29, 103 passing yards, 1 interception, quarterback rating of 45.6 against Bill Belichick and the Patriots. I can't even blame Ehlinger. It's the position that he's been put in by the Colts organization. And the Colts had the nerve to say, Ehlinger's going to be our starting quarterback the remainder of the season. Why? Why? You might as well put Nick Foles in. At least Nick Foles is a quarterback that players in that organization can respect at the quarterback position. What are you getting out of Ehlinger? He's not very good. So, again, I know Frank Reich got fired, and he deserves some responsibility of the Colts' struggles in the first 9 games of the season. But this is an organizational problem that the Colts have right now. This is an organizational problem. Quit being lazy, Chris Ballard, Jim Irsay, and go and develop one of these young quarterbacks you can get in the draft. Stop being lazy, please.